Morning, Abe.
Hey, good morning, Matt.
How are you doing today? You're in Anaheim?
In Anaheim at our office here, doing well. And it's sad we're definitely moving out of this space, and that's official. But really excited about the new office too. So might as well
New,
get as much use out of this place as we can for the rest of the year.
Absolutely. New beginnings. Cool. Um, yeah, no, it's been a good week. I know you got a little bit of relaxation. It's been a couple weeks of agents adjusting to the new changes, and I think I've really been happy with how much they're first of all adjusting and like, oh, this isn't so bad, but also like just how hard they're working to make sure they're getting it right. So it's been a good couple weeks. I enjoy the engagement and getting the questions and helping them solve through it. So it's been good. It's been a good couple of weeks, I think, with since the changes have happened. So
Yeah, it's a lot. It's definitely a lot, and it's still ongoing. I know things are still ever changing, and there's new scenarios every day that don't have solid answers all the way. But I think, yeah, and kudos to you, Matt. Again, you've been staying on top of all this in a very good way and listening and digesting everything out there. So
from a
it's been great. It's been
yeah.
great to get that support, definitely from what you've been doing and taking in. So
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
thank
no,
you.
I know. Yeah, no, I think you know. Um, you know how it is when you seek information about the industry and these things. It's like you have to sort through like a lot of you know noise and non-quality kind of stuff, right? To get to like some nuggets of like, okay, that's a good perspective, or hey, that's a good way of looking at things, right? And then and also even just to get the answers of so we've been calling car legal probably like 3 to 4 times maybe a week, if not a couple times a day, just to be absolutely sure. Like, because you hear things from here, you hear things from there, but we want to hear what does car say, right? They're the ones giving us these documents. What do they say about this? What do they say about that? So it's been a really learning experience for all of us. I think just trying to work as a team, and kudos to Nina as well, who's really helped out with a lot of those, trying to research a lot of those things too in real time. So, but it's been a real team effort. So happy about it. Uh,
Absolutely, absolutely.
but which brings us to one of our first, maybe the theme of today is really the institution of real estate, right? Uh, and when you look at institutions, you've got things like obvious things like the government institution, but you got things like healthcare, education, different institutions that have been set up over years, hundreds of years, thousands of years in some cases to better serve the public, right? Like as an institution, right? And so real estate's no different, right? Real estate's an institution in America, as far as like how it's been organized, how people are vetted to be practitioners in this institution and that sort of thing. And I think that all these institutions are always under attack, right? To some degree, healthcare, right? Like there's things that come up in healthcare that become a scandal or something, that needs a change, right? Pharmaceutical companies charging too much, you know, healthcare being, too expensive, all that sort of thing. Insurance, part of that, insurance is kind of an institution as well, right? But the point is, like, in real estate, it's no different. We're always going to be under attack for people thinking we need to fix things we need to do. Sometimes it's from within, sometimes it's from outside. But we're all representatives of that institution. I think that's what a lot of agents need to always be reminded of, is that look, we are you know the healthcare industry is kind of like your perception of it is based on like your last really extreme experience maybe with the healthcare industry. Maybe it was a loved one that you felt wasn't getting the support or the care they should have got, right? Or your last experience with education, right? Like you know went to college, now you have $100,000 of debt and you feel like it's not served you well, or or it could be that, hey, no, I had been to a great doctor and they took really great care of my dad, right? Or so it's all about that experience that really dictates that kind of perception of the institution. And the more those experiences culminate into more negative than positive, that's when kind of there's a lot more um, attacks on the institution itself and trying to reform it or put in new places. So I think I think when we think about what's happened here, I think the more important thing is to think about, like, how have we been representing this institution, and how are other people out there, representing our institution, and I think that's where the public trust in an institution is really important. And um, we all know that it doesn't require as much vetting to become a real estate agent as it is to become a doctor or to become an educator, right? And so our institution is really needs to be held up by sort of leadership, because there's a lot of people that get into it without necessarily, one, being that committed to it as a career, two, being that uh, uh, maybe even serious about the career they're pursuing, right? Like, and that's, we've talked about like some social media stuff that we've seen recently where it's really surprising, like these are the people representing our industry. And look, I love humor. Broke Agent has done an amazing job at bringing humor into our industry. I think we've all, like, shared Broke Agent memes or other kind of humorous type of posts out there to self-deprecate on our industry a little bit, to self-deprecate on ourselves, which is fine. That's all good. But I think there's other kind of people that are getting out there now, and sort of that influencer kind of, their goal is not really to be serious about real estate. It's kind of to be serious about getting people to follow them and and I think that sort of doesn't do our institution well, right? So to put it nicely. But
Yeah, and humor's great. Different ways to connect with people and get your name out there is great. So kudos to those who are doing really well with that, and found the formula to manipulate the algorithm, let's say, and
right,
get more likes and subscribes and whatnot, and monetize that. Fantastic. But I do, and maybe just because we're in it so much and we're in real estate, so we're looking at real estate stuff all the time, and maybe our algorithm is affected on Instagram by what we're looking at, and so it almost feels like I'm like, I am admitting that this may be like a skewed perception. It it feels like when I'm on Instagram and I see these posts and stuff that we in our industry have like an overabundance of really crap content. People who are putting out things there that maybe sometimes don't have nothing to do with real estate really, and and it really is to just get the sizzle so they can make some money by being quote unquote influencers. And so it's crazy. We passed around a few that I couldn't believe actually existed, and that these people were actually licensed realtors. And I won't call those out specifically, but I just realized there's a lot of that, right? And I think
right.
probably as agents or even as brokers, there's some temptation to go down that path, right? And to get the what do you call it, the views and the likes and the influence, quote unquote, in that way. Um, and it may be valuable. It may actually be not very valuable. Is kind of the thought.
Well, I think
I think we've been.
no, the value thing is there, though. I mean, that's the whole point. Like, I think it's like, if you, to use an analogy, like if you need to get medicine to go down, right? Then sometimes, what is it? Is that Mary Poppins? Spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. So I understand, like, humor is a part of our system. I have no problem with people having a sense of humor, right, in our industry, and having funny social media. There's nothing wrong with that. That's actually great. I think I support that. So I think, because we're trying to bring value, we're trying to actually educate people, we're trying to, like, bring people over to seeing exactly how things work. And so there's nothing wrong with having some humor to keep them engaged. So it's not just dry content, someone up there just, but I think it's the when it's just sugar. There's no value, there's no medicine. You're just giving sugar water, right? I think that's the problem with a lot of it, right? And some of it actually tears things down. I'll give you one example. I saw one of the ones we shared. um, you know, there was another video on the same Instagram account where they did this skit where they walk into an open house and the agent comes in with the other agent and starts handing the buyers, like, snacks, like, oh, here, like, they've got this here, and they're talking, and then the clients walk away, and he looks to the other agent and, hey, is there compensation being offered? And the guy's like, sorry, no compensation. And the guy's like, oh, hey guys, come back, here, let me take those snacks, and he takes snacks back, gives it back to the guy, and then he's like, like, hey, thanks, like, and then he tells them, oh, no compensation. It's like, oh, okay. And I get, like, the humor there, like, but the thing is like, that's undermining of, like, what we're trying to do. It's what's the point of that is saying basically that agents, if there's no compensation, we're going to not show the property. I mean, it's exactly that steering kind of argument. So it's not very thoughtful in what it's trying to express. There's humor, and we know that maybe some agents feel that way, but that's not good for the institution of real estate for people to see that, right, and to understand that. So I think that's where, it
And
goes the wrong way.
that particular, content creator, if you will, is real estate agent. But I've always wondered this, some of the things that we put out, if our clients were to see it, if a buyer were to see that, let's say, versus another real estate agent who might laugh at it, right? What would the reaction be from a buyer you're working with, right? When they see this spoof video of you taking back the snacks and giving it back to the listing person, right? And saying, let's get out of here, right? So
Yeah.
what is that like? And I think if we look at things through that lens, a lot more times, the content isn't very good, and it's not something that builds the industry or builds us or builds the profession. It's things that actually tear it down, that reinforce the reason why people think this way negatively about real estate agents or about the institution of real estate in that sense. And so it's all fun and games, and we get the idea of social media and how to make money on it, and getting attraction through entertainment and all this stuff. But I do wonder sometimes if we need to look closer at the content that we're putting out. And again, not saying not be funny or whatever. Love some of the content our agents are putting together.
Yeah.
It's really funny, poignant stuff. But I wonder if a buyer or seller were to see your content, what they would think. And we're going to talk about that more. But I think it's a very interesting kind of lens to look through from time to time, and evaluate some things. So, like, one other thing too with the institution, Matt, I know that there is another industry going through a lot of shakeup right now, a lot of layoffs, right? And I know it's being publicized more as we talk about the overall economy and the recession. It's the tech industry, right? Um, the tech industry has been somewhat of an institution, right? And it's
More
morphed
to
over the
what we call
last
big tech, right? The big tech, right?
big
Like
tech,
the,
big tech.
the companies we all go to every day, and they kind of almost have like sort of monopolies in the way of the things we do, right? Whether it be social search, right? Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. And again, these, companies being huge, right? Huge, huge, huge companies. And I'm not talking about just like, the breaking up of Google or something like this, but when an institution gets big, there are a ton of things that go unchecked, right? A lot of inefficiencies, even a lot of things that you haven't really paid attention to maybe in decades, and thought, why are we doing this? Or does this have any value for us, for the consumer, for what our mission is, any of that? And one of the things too that's changing pretty rapidly, as there is a little bit of a compression in the economy, is are our employees here at this quote unquote ABC tech company, do we need them anymore? For a long time we've been writing great profits and increasing market share, but now the economy's contracting. What do we need to do to, in a smart way, bring some efficiency and bring some profitability to the company? And it really has affected people who didn't have value in the company anymore, or were only working 2 hours out of the 8-hour workday, let's say, right, or 10 hours of a 40-hour work week. And it's very quick, and easy for these tech companies to then evaluate that there's no value there. They're not getting the value out of that employee anymore, as they've been working from home the last 3 or 4 years, and they've just kind of checking in when they want, right? And so there's a shakeup there. I feel like for us too, in the real estate institution, we are seeing that, and incomes are going to be affected in some ways. And there's a lot of adaptation to do. But I think it's a really great time for us, to find new innovation and to move forward in a direction that this industry is needed for probably decades, right? And get rid of practices that might have been questionable or not the best for the consumer in the end, and really find a new way to move forward, and still stay in business, right? And still keep real estate, as a good institution, in our country. And so,
Yeah, no,
so I
and
yeah.
good.
No, go
So no,
ahead.
I mean, these institutions were built out of necessity, right? They weren't just built they were built because there was a necessity there. You think about real estate, right? There's some real protections in there. I mean, in America, we hold, I mean, in most places, but America especially, holds like personal property ownership is a real, foundation of a lot of our society, right? Like having home ownership. And I know that that's come under challenge at different times for certain people, but the point is like that idea needs to be protected and has an institution that protects that and keeps it, that keeps trust there. Because imagine like in speculation, Wild West, right? People buying land, they were getting deeds and finding out the land wasn't where it was or was fake. I mean, there's a lot of things that happened in America at the beginning of land kind of ownership and things like that, where people, like having a secure form of land ownership where you know what you're buying, you know what you're getting, and having those protections and making sure those rights are protected, that this institution was built out of that, right? And so that trust, it comes from having really solid like practitioners, right? Like you can't, it's you've seen it in education, right? A lot of people attack teachers, right? A lot of people, there's people that have this real bent on attacking the quality of teaching, right? So we see it there, that way. But with real estate agents especially, there's a lot of people questioning the quality of us as real estate agents, and that's where the value then gets questioned. And are we paying too much? And the guy who started the lawsuit, and the guy who started Redfin, right? Their conclusion was, I bought a house, the agent did hardly anything, and I paid them too much for it. Right? That was their takeaway from the experience, and that's what made them decide. Because Redfin was a big attack on our institution from a standpoint of like trying to find a way that we can have, because part of our institution has been independent contractor agents, where each agent's almost their own business owner, right? Redfin was the first company to really, I mean, I'm sure other people have tried it, so don't get me wrong if there's other companies, but Redfin was the first company in a major way to turn agents into employees, right? And that was sort of it could be an existential threat, you could say, to a real estate agent as their own business owner. If Redfin that model would have caught on, and everybody would have said, hey, this is actually the right model, right? At the time there was talk about banks. Banks have been kept out of being able to have real estate agents, right? Like the banks, there was definitely legislation that didn't allow banks to have real estate agents, right? They can have loan officers, but they can't have agents. And you can imagine if Chase, could have real estate agents, and it's like you come into the bank and they're like, hey, you can have our agent, and they're employees, like they're not, so the point is there's been legislation by NAR and by CAR to protect and carve out sort of that independent contractor. Well, someone could always challenge that. Hey, that's not so. So the point is these institutions are built in a way that we're trying to protect the consumer and give and have public trust. But then sometimes we become self-serving with those institutions, we challenged, because now it's like, hey, we're looking out for ourselves only now. We're not looking out for the consumer. And I think that's where kind of like we talked about this a little bit before, but as soon as the commissions were challenged, everybody's like, let's get rid of NAR, let's get rid of CAR. Like they failed to keep our commissions, like they let us down. But like let's remember that they also keep us like ethical, like they create a playing field that ever tries to create fairness. And I know sometimes it can be annoying when they slap on the wrist for something that you think is a silly thing, but the whole point is that that's a huge part of our institution, is these organizations that are there to set up rules for us so we don't hurt the consumer or we don't hurt each other. And that's an important part of having an institution, is having a governance of, like, just like the doctors have the medical boards, right? That will take your license away, licensing boards. Everybody has licensing boards. They have different organizations that kind of even hold it up to a higher standard. So each state has its own licensing board for real estate, but there's these we built on the realtor profession to give ourselves a little bit more public trust. Like, hey, we're realtors, we've got this. And to me, it seems like people just turning on that sort of thing is short-sighted, right? Because we're going to tear down our own institution if we don't figure out how we can work together to better serve the public, right? And I think that's where I want agents to see, like, this is not just a small blip and like, oh, we'll figure out how to come up with tactics around this. But it's like, no, this is a major change that we need to see now clearly. Like, hey, we need to look at it from the consumer's perspective and what our institution is being perceived as. And let's, like, I don't want to say, to admit to like we were doing something wrong, like intentionally, obviously, but maybe there were some practices that maybe do need to change and weren't as pro-consumer as we thought they were. And let's like rebuild in a way that's not trying to go back to doing that or try to manipulate. And that's where I keep trying to tell agents, Don't ask for the commissions. Don't ask what the seller's willing to pay. Like, we're not going back to that old way and trying to kind of put your toe in there, in the water, try to like, well, maybe we can kind of get back in there. If no one's looking, we can kind of get back into the water. It's like, no, we're out, we're done. We're not going back, and so, and I think that the agents who get that are gonna really be able to, in a fundamental way, bring more value to their consumer, because they're gonna stop focusing on the tactics of, oh, gotcha, like got him to sign, got him this, I came with a clever line, and move back to like bringing real value, and you'll be paid accordingly. Because there are going to be consumers out there that want to pay a real professional, and there's people out there that don't want to pay because they don't think we're anything. So you don't want to cater to the people who don't want to pay us and then be the clown they think you are. Be the professional, and the people who want to pay a real professional who value what we do and really want guidance, they'll pay you, and they'll pay you well, just like any industry, just in any industry. And so if you try to be the person who's continuously manipulative, continuously trying to figure out a way to go around, you're going to be the one racing to zero with those people that go that direction. Whereas the rest of the people will find find the clients who want to pay a professional well. And it's just as simple as that. And it's so clear to me, but I wish I could get other people to see it the same way,
Yeah, I'll say this, like the institution and the practices of the institution are things that obviously have blown up right now, and we're kind of turning things upside down. But I also think the business models within our institution have created some of this negativity, at the very least, or not looking out for the consumer per se. And I hate to call this out. I know we always kind of wrestle with calling certain things out, but I know you have a better experience with it than I do. All right. But the multi-level marketing business model, within our industry, I think has kind of created, almost a distraction in some ways, from doing the job of being a real estate agent and being really good at what you do, and earning clients that way, versus, again, like just being influence, right? Or being social influence and attracting as many recruits to you, whether they have the ability to sell real estate or the training and expertise, to really be like an advisor versus just a tactical salesperson, right? That
Right.
goes out there and reads a couple scripts, or knocks on doors and drops off a couple things that really work, to get the attention or to get you remembered. Like, and that's what the industry is filled with too, at the moment. So as much as NAR and the rules that govern and some of these old practices, I think have been challenged. I wish some of these business models would be taken a look at. And again, I don't fault any company for growing fast and seeing what the best way to grow a company is, and get valuation and go public or whatever it is. I get that, right? I get that world pretty well. But is it helping our industry, or is it hurting our industry? Is it extracting from the industry, or is it giving something to the industry? Is what I'm still questionable about, right? And I'm hoping that there are more people, in the industry that want to give something to it positively, or affect a positive change in it, and give something to customers that they need, understanding what they're doing, in terms of buying or selling real estate, and how important that is, for them to work with the best. And so I think we've lost that sometimes in the business models that we've built. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I
Again,
think,
I don't
yeah,
want to see any company names, right? I don't
I
want to see
know,
any company
man.
names,
I
but
know who they are. I mean, well, the thing about it is I can say this after, and I'll say this. I mean, I've experienced with EXP. I'll say their name, right? And I studied it. I studied the people who were involved. I studied the players. I studied when I go into something, I study it and I really research, right? And so I can say that I don't think I ever found one training that taught you how to actually do the job, right? Of how to take care of clients. I'm talking from the influencers, how to take care of your clients, how to give them great service. I'm not saying it wasn't out there, so don't anybody say, oh, there's this and that. I'm saying the stuff that you come across is mostly how to get business. It's mostly how to actually find a client, which makes sense. It's a hard thing to do. So you have that. And that's what everybody wants. They want the money. So they want to go, how do I get more business? So that's what's going to attract people. So they're giving the people what they want. I get that. But the thing is that a lot of that is very, tactic kind of and very manipulative type stuff too. You know, and maybe we're jumping around here about tactic-based training, but I remember he's one of the biggest influencers in EXP completely. And he said he was in a podcast and it was a product of a book. You can pay a company to write a book for you. You don't write the book, you don't touch the book. They just put your name on it. And it's like, how to sell your home in today's market or something. That's the name of the book. And then they write the book for you. You don't do anything. And then you just put your name on it, written by me, right? And in that podcast, and he's selling this company, like it was one of the advertisers, I guess, he says, and I know he's trying to sell the product, so I know maybe he didn't think this through, but he says, hey, do you want to work with an agent who's, oh, I give good service, I'm a great negotiator, I know how to protect you legally, or do you want the guy who wrote the book? And I thought like he was mocking someone who's good at the actual job, and then the person didn't even write the book, right? So it's just, but that's the thinking is like, and people listen and go, oh, and there's someone who listens and goes, oh, I got to go work at a company, I want to write the book. And it's like that's what's wrong with their industry is that they, people think of this like these gimmicky things to try to win business, and then you've got someone like him who sells a lot of homes. I mean, people know him. I'm not saying that he's not good at selling homes or not good at getting clients. I don't know how good he's at selling homes, but he's good at getting clients to sell homes with him. So there's that kind of stuff, and and then the other part of what I also say is a lot of the training was how to recruit. I was at a mastermind in Colorado, and one of probably the top guy there as far as like in having a downline, basically told all these agents who were in the room were top producing agents, stop focusing on selling houses. Like that's not where the money is. Like I don't care about being icon, which is like being like having a really good production level, like where you cap and then do 20 deals after that. That's like the icon status. He's like, don't worry about icon, worry about your downline. And I thought, okay, so I left that mastermind really demotivated in the sense of like, oh man, this is not about like building a good company with good agents. This is about just everybody for themselves, is trying to get as much as you can underneath you. And then and so I won't go into that. But the point is that's the idea that if we go back to like influence and leadership, I think the thing is that there's great leadership at those companies. There's great leadership. Like some of the great people there at EXP, in leadership. But I think the unintended consequences is that there's a lot more influencers in the company at the other levels than leaders, people that are really like trying to hold up our institution of real estate, who really want like people to have successful lives and I'm sure they all want people. You ask them, yeah, I want people to have successful lives, but who commit themselves to saying the right things and doing the right things in the disciplined way to ensure that outcome versus like getting caught up in the kind of frenzy of like, I got to get more people in this and, in the competition there, and treating it like that versus like quality of the interactions and the communications, it's just,
Yeah.
it's,
I I I think our industry is so filled with that influence that you're talking about. And I asked ChatGPT, what's the difference between influence and leadership, right? And the main difference is this, is that there is a mission or a vision that the leader has decided to commit himself to, versus influence may just be, hey, I want as many eyes on me as possible. I want to have a platform, but for what end is sometimes unclear, and so for us, I feel like we've always focused on leading and what leadership is, and within our company trying to build leaders who would then take that mantle and that vision and mission and carry it forward, and make it less about yourself and more about the other. And I think that's lacking. I also see this, and this is jumping back to tactical based training, right? There was some training that I saw on a very known CEO's Instagram page that I happened to stumble upon, that was talking about open houses, right? And what do you do when a buyer comes into the open house and they ask these questions? And he had some really like kind of witty like lines to say to the buyer to win them over and to get them to do the next thing, which is give me your name, give me your email, let's have a coffee, right? And I was just thinking as I was watching that, I was like, I wonder what a buyer thinks when they watch this type of training video, and like what they would feel about it. Or like, will the buyer watch this and say, okay, next time I go to open house and someone says that to me, here's my deflect on that, right? Here's my retort. So I don't have to do a coffee with them, or I don't have to sign whatever or give them my contact info. And I
Right.
just think, again, if we looked at things through that lens, like some of the stuff that we put out or some of the training we have is somewhat embarrassing. I got to be very honest about it. It is embarrassing. And I would hate for a buyer or seller to be in that room, in that training, listening to the tactics that are going to be used on them, right, to get them to the finish line of selling with, this
Right.
agent, right? It feels manipulative, it feels disingenuous, and I'm not saying that we need training and how to do sales well, but I almost feel like if we just replaced sales with service or sales with hospitality, that things would be a little bit cleaner. I think we had a new agent training recently, and we the directive was, hey guys, like just call some people you haven't talked to in a while and just see how they're doing, right? I remember some of the questions that came up was like, well, how do we talk about real estate? Do we ask them to give us referrals? Like, do we tell them we're in a new real estate career, this and that? And it was like, man, no, just call them and just ask how they're doing, right? And ask, how's life been, since we last talked?
Right.
And then I think we had to say to them, take the sales out of it, take the real estate out of it, and just have a conversation. And it all of a sudden became very simplified, right, and very easy to understand. Okay, that's what I need to do. Okay, right. But it does have that. Like I realize a lot of agents, especially ones that are starting out, want that tactic. They want the script. They want the like, what do I do to earn the biz? And that's why it's so attractive for people to go to these workshops and whatnot. But it's almost like you got to remind people, like, hey, just connect, just have a conversation, ask how people are doing, and be genuinely interested in that, right? And keep nurturing your friends and family and your relationships, right? Because it's just a good thing to do,
Yeah.
whether or not it leads to a sale.
Yeah.
I do want to shout out one other influencer that I heard that I think we might have exchanged on this too, but I love what he put out. And literally, what he put out was, hey, real estate agents, you know what you need right now? Your first hire, if you're a growing producer, it's literally hire an assistant to help you care for your clients, to help you like celebrate their birthdays well, and to notify you of life happenings that you may have missed in their lives, and to keep you kind of on the in the know of what's happening with your clients and help you like stay engaged with them, right? I thought that was brilliant and
100%.
beautiful at the same time, right? That it really is. You need help doing that, and to have a person that almost is like conspiring with you to show love and care and like to celebrate the different happenings in your clients' lives. Like I just thought that's such a natural, humanistic way to do relationship and to stay, top of mind with folks and to really
100%.
engage. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And,
so
and it's this, and like I say this, because we're not saying we understand we're a business. It's a business, you know. But what's the experience like with your business? Are you a business that celebrates, takes care of people, loves people, shows great attention to detail with make sure everything goes perfectly for them? Or are you a business who just figures, how do I manipulate these people in the easiest way possible to earn an income and then like move on to the next, right? And that's the whole point, is like we're in business. We're not mistaken there, and I think that's where the sales aspect of it is that having scripts or having dialogues, it's really framing. It's really being able to educate people in a frame that helps them understand better, right? And that's where, having a perspective, having a frame, having a way of going, here's how I want you to look at this, right? And here's how this works. That we should teach, that we should train agents on, is how to frame things properly, how to educate properly. There's no doubt about that. We need to have ways of educating how to say certain things, and even techniques in communication, right? Of how to like bring someone from here to here because they're stuck maybe in some way, in their thinking, right? And how to make it clear to them, like maybe you should look at it this way. Those are all great communication techniques. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having great communication styles and techniques, getting people to focus in on your words, those are fine, because you do need to communicate. We need to communicate well. It's when people just look at things as like little mistruths. Like I think the one you're talking about, the open house, is they come in, they want to talk to the listing agent, and then you say, well, I'm the buyer specialist for this home, or this, how can I help you, right? Or something like that, where it's like, what do you, okay, I get the kind of reframing, if you want to call it that, but is that honest? Are you really being truthful in that? What does that really mean? What are you really saying? It's similar to when people were training people on Zillow, when they would call and trying to talk to the listing agent, and they would say, actually, Zillow wants you to work with me as the buyer's agent, or they want to, and it's like, well, Zillow does, that's true, there's nothing lying about that, like, as far as, but what you're doing is you're conspiring with Zillow in that lie. So it's like you're telling the truth, that Zillow is kind of lying, right? Like, like you're saying Zillow wants that because they get paid if I use, whatever. But at the same time, is that the same as saying, like, hey, the trust that you have for Zillow calling them to see this house, 20, the listing agent, is that being betrayed there by me now saying, no, they want you to work with me, and sort of taking that authority? I don't know. That's up to everybody to decide. I think it's a little manipulative, right? I think it's a little bit. What I would say is educate them. Oh, you want to speak to listing, and then they say, well, they'll hang up on you. Then it's like, well, maybe if you have to manipulate people to not get them to hang up, maybe then you need to rethink your business model. Like, if you have to use manipulation, often, then maybe your business model isn't, ethical, right? And maybe that's part of the
Absolutely.
problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'm the shakeup in our industry sucks, but yeah, I'm not trying to minimize it at all. But I am really excited in some ways to see some of this stuff get shaked up also at the same time, right? Or shaken up. And so, if you replace sales with education, service, hospitality, right? And those are your ends versus just a sale, right? I'm going to corner you into a sale. I think we would all rest easier. I think we would all find more enjoyment in what we do, right?
Yeah.
And feel like, and maybe even this would like lead to better relationships in general, versus having that commission breath or that one outcome that you're looking for, and you're going to work whatever it takes to do that, right? Who's got
Right.
my money today, and how am I going to grab it from them? Like that type of mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's time for some of these things to be reshaped. I know we've been beating this like I don't know, like just so much, right? But it's manipulation and
Well,
tactics and
I'm
stuff like
sorry,
that.
I just think it's
Yeah.
self-respect, right? Like, meaning, imagine if you had a doctor who was like, man, here's how you get them to get more medical tests, and you make like this much more money if you do this. Imagine if doctors were talking that way. And so if you're a real estate agent talking that way, you don't respect yourself as much as you expected a doctor to respect themselves, right? If you thought about an educator, I mean, we have this in higher ed, it's complained about a lot, these professors who make it a money machine for themselves, right? They publish their own books and make their students buy it. They have these special, like reader supplements or whatever, right? So you'll have to go buy at some like off-campus store to pay for. And I knew that printer was giving a kickback to that professor, right? You know what I mean? So it's like, there's all these industries where you've got bad players in it and things like that, right? And the industries themselves become corrupted with that sort of thing. Like, hey, that's just the game. Like, if they're doing it, so I got to do it. You know what I mean? And there's that kind of, and that's where kind of corruption happens, right? Is when it's just how we do it. It's just like people kind of just go along with it. You go into politics, and all of a sudden now that's the game. You got to, you know, like, is that Pink Floyd saying, "Come in here, kid, have a cigar, you're gonna go far," like that kind of stuff. Like it's that kind of influence of like, hey, this is the way it's done. This is how you do it, and maybe, you know, and it might work. I don't think you and I are gonna get rid of this. I don't think. I don't think we're gonna. I don't think it's gonna. But I just hope that enough agents hear us, maybe, and I hope that our Circa and what we stand for is going to be, like, there's enough people that at least, hey, we can affect the world in a positive way. There's always going to be, it's not a utopia. There's always going to be crime. There's always going to be criminals. There's always going to be bad actors. But that doesn't mean you just give into it and go along with it, right? You can push out from the inside of those values out and gain market share with that. And that's what I hope. We hear that lands on agents' ears, like we can grow this way too, though. That works too, but this works too. And which one are you going to choose?
Yeah. Yeah. And, we're tempted a lot of times to grow the company fast, right? And to grow it, with numbers in mind. And of course, we want to be profitable. That's why we're in business, right? Not to lose money, to no end, right? But to really build something that lasts and to attract people that would get this right and help propagate this forward versus the manipulation, the sales tactics, and all that. And I think we have them. I think none of us are perfect at this, but we're ever improving. And I'm proud of who we have, and I got to shout out some of our people for just being spectacular at this. Like I'm reminded, like this past week, of a closing that one of our agents did, and she gave such a beautiful gift to the sellers. After that closing, I was like, dang, how did you think of that? Like, or, again, I was just, it was so nice and so thoughtful, but it was Jessica Lee. She, on a house she sold, she had just an amazing backyard. I think the owners and the sellers had like, just really like curated in terms of what plants went where, what trees went where, and where the gondola or whatever it was, right? And they had an emotional attachment to the house, and so she took the initiative to have a painting commissioned to like draw that backyard, paint that backyard, so that the owners would have something that they could remember the home by. And it was very impactful. Like I believe the owners loved it. In fact, they both cried, and they just really appreciated the gift. And so I think celebrating things like that, and encouraging our agents to do things like that, that are really thoughtful, that are really, again, just humanistically good. That's what wins, and that's the company we're trying to build, and the people we're trying to attract and lead. And so I got to give a shout out to her for doing such a great job there. But I feel like
Um,
there's a lot of stories like that within our company that we can probably spend another hour talking about, and that's
Absolutely.
why we do what we do. Yeah, and that's what we love what we do. Um, and I just hope we never become a company that has our own proprietary tactics and manipulations, like kind of skills to get people to sell at high volumes, right, or to buy at high volumes, but that it always be like a service and hospitality and care oriented, like agent base that we have and we lead. And I know it starts with us, right?
Yeah.
And I know it starts with what we do and how we do things to really show that care to our people that then pours out. And so yeah, again, I'm not saying damn leadership. I'm sorry, not leadership, but damn influence. I think influence is important. But I love that we care about leadership, right?
Yeah.
And leading people and a mission and a vision in this institution of real estate. And that matters. So
Right. Yeah. And I think that the whole leadership and influence thing, and I'll just say this, is like, um, there's the substance of what you're doing. Like you said, they have a leadership has a mission, has a thing. I think that's where it is, like, like, I mean, we know we have a couple of people, like, shout out to them as far as like they're doing a lot of social media humorously, and it's great. Like I love it. They're educating people, but they also have a humor side, because that way no one's going to want to just watch real estate education, right? They mix it in, and if they do a wonderful, masterful job of that, I think it's great. And I think that we encourage that. We encourage our agents to have some humor in a presentation. If I sat there and didn't make any jokes or have any sort of sense of humor, and you know and have then my clients would be, I mean, maybe sometimes they do go, like, get a little sleepy. but, but the point is, it's like you got to have some humor in anything you do. There's nothing wrong with that. Doctors should have humor, right? Lawyers should have humor. Humor is part of our connecting, right? I mean, when you think about what humor is, it's a way of connecting with people. So there's nothing wrong with connection, right?
absolutely.
We want you to connect. It's the it's the almost clown like silliness that undermines your seriousness as a professional, that you've got to watch to connect like that. And I think you could get pretty close to being silly. The more serious of and professional you are, you can get a little more clown like, because you've got that substance. But if you don't
That's
have
right.
that, and it's like when Buffini said one time, everybody wants to be on the stage, but they don't want to have to do what it takes to earn to be on this stage. And I think we're living in an era where a lot of people haven't earned to be on that stage. The one guy that we talked about has almost 100,000 followers on Instagram. And I'm not putting this down. I'm not saying this, but it doesn't equate to business. I looked, his average sales price is 354,000. 8 deals in the last 12 months means 2.8 million in sales. After he pays the EXP commission, things like that, he probably made about $55,000 gross before his expenses, and for putting on that many videos. So, and again, I'm not putting down the production, and I wish him luck. I hope he grows his business. All I'm saying is people watching that going, oh, that's what I should do, versus watching agents who are actually selling, 20, 30, 40 homes a year and doing it quietly right? And going, what are they doing, right? What are they doing that's not so in my face, but let me learn from them and see what they're doing in their business, right? And again, social is a great way of getting business, and especially through referral based. But we've talked about this, so we're not condemning social media. We're not condemning people getting people's interest and attention on them. That's marketing. You need that. It's just do it right. Do it with substance and humor, not stuff that undermines our industry, undermines yourself, disrespects yourself. It doesn't.
100%. 100%. I'm reminded of two things. Well, one, I wanted to shout out Kay Lee too. I think
Well, that's
her
what I was
Instagram
saying.
is hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hilarious, and I feel like, Kay, how do you not have 1 million followers? You are someone that needs to have influence, right, and a spotlight, because you're great at what you do, right, and you make light of situations that we all know to be true. And it's hilarious, right? And then the other thought I had as you were kind of sharing is, I remember a conversation with a friend way back when, and it just kind of came to me. It was at the time when social media was kind of starting up, and um, it was really easy to like retweet quotes from like really popular thought leaders and stuff like that, and try to get followership that way. I remember, and it may be right and maybe wrong. I don't know. To this day, I still feel like it's right, but I sometimes wonder, what if this guy had 1 million followers from doing that? That's a great platform, right? But I remember saying to him, for better or worse, I said, "Hey, why don't you go lead something? Go lead something, and then share your ideas about leadership versus like just not lead in kind of in your own like little corner, just retweet this stuff, right, to get like attention." I remember saying that pretty convicted, like, yeah, go lead something and then share your leadership, like, or your learnings from that, versus again just going for the followers. And I think that's what I was saying to him is, forget about followers, like learn some things about leadership and share that with the world. And I wonder if in the real estate industry, um, we should spend more time doing real estate and learning about real estate. And I want to say this too: buying real estate and being an owner of real estate. I don't know what the poll is right now, right? But I imagine that there's still a pretty big population of real estate agents who have never bought real estate, at all, right? Let alone investment properties or whatever. Um, and so maybe aspire to own real estate as well, and understand from that perspective what service means, right? If you want to go buy a house and you want to make an investment, what is important in that process, right? What's the service that needs to be given to someone in that position? And I almost guarantee that a lot of the people, again, focused more heavily on this influence stuff, haven't even bought a home, right? Or been through the process as themselves buying
Right.
something, right?
Right.
But they are quote unquote experts of the home buying process. I think it's weird. I think it's a little weird, right? And so that would be something I would throw to new agents or agents who are aspiring. Hey, go through that process for yourself, right? Make money, buy a home, and then kind of you can see a little bit clearer what being a home buying agent or first time home buying agent is like and what is needed there. And don't pay so much attention to the tactics that people are telling you, and this is how you do it, this is how you earn the business. Like, yeah, some of that has some value, but maybe aspire for that, and then think, what would I want? What kind of service would I want?
Well,
What
that's a
kind of
good.
person would I want to help me in that? Right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is if you think about, like, if I want to go buy a house in, let's say, North Carolina, right? What is the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to ask people if they know a good real estate agent in North Carolina. That's the first thing I'm going to do. I want to get a referral from someone I trust, right? And then I'm hoping that that person in North Carolina is not looking at me like, oh, I got to get this guy into like any house soon, like within 30, 60 days. I'm hoping they're like, cool, that's exciting. Like, I want to hear more about that from you. Like, what do you want to do? What are your goals? Like, what are you thinking of doing? Like, why are you doing this? Like, I want to have someone consult me in that process so they understanding. I mean, I want to fill them with as much information in my head into their head so I know that they know exactly what I'm looking for, right? And then I want to hear as much from them to counter back and say, here's what I think. And I want to hear that. I want to process that information and go, yeah, that sounds like a good plan. Like, yeah, thank you for your expertise because here's what I was looking for. Now I know maybe I should be looking for this or this, but it's a conversation and consulting. And then I feel comfortable buying a house. And I feel like why do people think that's not what they should be doing? Like, of just, asking questions, getting as much information from them, asking questions out, fill my head with I want your head to fill into my head so I understand what you're looking for, what you want, what everything you want to do. And then here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to process that with my expertise and give you some feedback on what you might want to think about, and then have that honest dialogue, and then help them buy a house. It's not that complicated, other than these
That's right.
tactics of like, it's focus your time on being good, and like Nadia said, like, don't suck, not sucking, instead of
Yeah.
trying to the next tactic or the manipulative strategy to get business. It's a hamster wheel of constantly, like, I don't know, just build a solid business, take care of people, and it'll exponentially grow. I mean, it just will. I mean, and it's like, and at some point you limit. The reason some agents aren't bigger in their business is because they don't have the operational efficiencies to take on more business. And that's really what's stopping their business.
Yeah.
It's not because they can't go find more leads. I always said, it's you run out of capacity before you run out of leads in this business. If you're good at what you do, you run out of capacity. And that's why hiring that assistant, hiring the things. So you really should focus on building your capacity. How am I more like, how do I
Sure.
manage time better things, rather than going, how do I get more leads? And that's why I always say the first thing that you need to do is hire an assistant once you start to grow, rather than how do I pour more. People think they need to pour more gasoline on the fire. It's like, no, no, no. You need to make sure you have someone that can manage that fire, right? Someone that can help you manage that fire, because it's like pouring more gasoline. You just spill leads all over the place, and then you stop taking care of your clients well because you're too busy. And so so really people run out of capacity, and so build your capacity, build your expertise, grow that, and your business will grow. But if you try to just grow with tactics, you're always going to be on a hamster wheel of churning and burning, and it's never ending. Um, but yeah,
Absolutely. I got to add one more thing to that. And I got to shout out another set of agents. I got to spend a little time in the Lake Tahoe area the last few days, with my family, and just enjoying kind of the nature that's there. And I got to give a huge shout out to Rachel and Patty Turner. They know that lake like the back of their hand, right? I almost didn't do this trip because I had jury duty for 3 weeks, and so all of our summer plans were kind of dashed, right? But Rachel gave me such a wonderful email with all the places that I should go see, do all the activities, the hotels to stay at, and all that. And then I got to spend a little time with them. I realized, man, they know every nook of this lake and the communities around it. They know which side has more sun, and has longer days, and why, right? And why that's more beneficial for some, and some people prefer the other side, right? They know which way the wind patterns go, right? And all that. And so I was just like so blown away, but just so glad to have agents like Rachel and Patty in our fold too, that really take seriously understanding their land, their field, right? Their battleground, so to speak,
yeah,
and really giving value to people with that knowledge. And I got some of that because, again, I was just wanted to take a trip to Tahoe with the family, but I just feel like I got such a great experience because they knew the land so well, and they knew all the happenings and where to eat, where to go take a hike, and what to check out, what hotels to stay at. And I wish more and more that our agents would be that in their own locales too, and that's the value that they carry. And I know we have a large handful of agents like that, and super proud that we have that. But I would say to like younger agents or agents that sell everywhere, to really last in the business and to grow your expertise like another level, it really is to be able to have that niche, right? And to say, this is my ground, this is kind of my domain, and I am going to be a master of it. I'm going to know every place to eat, live, the neighborhoods, the school districts, the nuances, right? And master that too, and provide that value for people.
yeah. And no, I understand. I think that's the focus and clarity of who you are, who your customer is, what your expertise is, and getting really clear on those things to be able to build a solid foundation for your business is always important. I think 100%, because the same CEO from the company that you're talking about that had the kind of open house tactical type thing. One time he said something, I think it was him, who said, without a strategy, everything looks like an opportunity, right? So sometimes we chase every opportunity because we have no real strategy, right? And I think I agree with that. Like having, they know their strategy. They're there to be experts in Lake Tahoe and do that. So they're not going to, oh, I'll go sell a house up here. And there's nothing wrong with going by referral places. I'm just saying being clear on your strategy, being clear on what you are, so you're not just always chasing every little opportunity and then never getting focused in on a business that builds on itself, for sure is important. Um, so real quick, aftermath.
Amen.
Yeah, sorry, didn't mean to hijack that last. But the aftermath. We were going to talk just real quick. I think we should just touch on this for a second, since we're running out of time here. Is the guy who did that was the main plaintiff in the lawsuit that we settled, right? Um, the big Sitzer Burnett trial that was settled. Um, lawsuit. It started a company, and so some of you might already heard it. It's all the people are talking about this, and it's a discount buyer service basically, and so it's kind of to us somewhat hilarious. I mean, and I'm not. I mean, that's my reaction, um, almost because it's too obvious. It's too, it's too just. It's to me, it's in my opinion, is it's ridiculous,
It's crazy a little bit, but
But the idea is what it is basically you pay $49 to go see a house, and then that company doesn't actually have a brokerage. They just work with partnering. So I don't know, they pay you a certain amount to go show that house. So I don't know how that works. But eventually, if you end up working with the person, and so you get 5 home tours and 2 offers written, it's like $17.99, right? And so the point is, it's like I think Abe and I are pretty confident how this is going to end. We could be wrong, but we're pretty confident about how it's going to end. And anyway, so if you hear about that, but you're going to hear about those type of things, right? Companies trying to come out, because here's the thing: there's going to be competition there. And if you're competing, you're starting at $17.99, and there's another person that's, I mean, it's such an easy thing to try to pull off. It's like there's no real innovation. It's just a pure discount play. And that they're going to have to deal with people who are the person's brother and willing to do it for $17.99, right? So the point is, like, there's always going to be people competing in that race to zero. And I just think it's like there's a real fundamental. People have been accusing them of not understanding the real estate industry, and now this is kind of proven like they don't understand all it takes to be a buyer's agent and do it well and take care of people, because it's like it's ridiculous. It really is. But we'll see. It'll be fun to watch. Get the
should I
popcorn.
read something? Should I read something off their website that we thought
Sure.
was funny?
Yeah.
Okay. This is
Oh,
for
right.
agents to sign up for the site, right? To be a part of this. I don't even want to say the platform name, but to be a part of the platform, sign up with us and secure more deals with our 90-day exclusive representation agreements, ensuring you stay in control from first tour to final offer. I just thought it's a funny choice of words given the lawsuit that we all just experienced, right? So what the hell is going on here? I just think
Like he
there are
definitely
going to be
the
say
whole.
again.
It definitely betrays the whole idea of the lawsuit. It was saying stay in control. It's like, wait, that's pro-consumer. Anyway,
Yeah,
sorry, you're.
yeah. No, maybe he'd have a smart answer as to why that was the word choice that he chose. But it's like, man, it's so crazy because I think what's happening is always chasing kind of the new opportunity or being opportunistic, right? In some ways, and I'm not saying this is his whole motive or whatnot. I'm sure it was a fantastic business idea in his mind with his partners, and they decided to launch this endeavor, which is great, and I wish him well. But I just think there's so much that people. So I think people are pretty disenchanted by opportunistic people. You could smell it from a mile away, right? It almost feels like, do you think I'm that unintelligent to be able to see that intention in some ways? And and I think people now more than ever are pretty repulsed by that, right? I got to share a little bit about my jury duty experience because I just had almost 3 weeks of jury duty recently, and I remember a guy once we went into jury deliberation appointing himself the foreman, right? And being very clear that I got things to do. I have a schedule, so I need to be out of here by a certain time.
Right.
And as we're deliberating, right, and trying to make a very important decision here altogether as 12 jurors, that he would like interject himself and say, well, let's take a vote. We're like, can we vote? Are we ready? Like, let's get out of here, basically, is what he's saying. I think everyone was just looking at him like, what the heck are you doing? Like, how do you not see that you've kind of like, how do you expect us not to realize that you've appointed yourself foreman to try to save yourself time and energy, right? So you can get the hell out of here, right? Rather than do what the court has instructed us to do and really take this decision and weigh it out and look at the evidence, right? And so
Right.
I just think we're in a time um, where people are really smart. They have a lot of information now, right? And they've gone through enough like salesy tactics to know when they're being sold and when they're actually being given value and being educated, right? And being serviced. And I just hope that our agents and other agents in the industry would focus on that more than, again, the manipulation, tactics, getting a sale done, having commission breath, and just trying to make some money and be opportunistic. I think, yeah, that's why we do what we do. And that's why we keep beating this on the head over and over and over, hoping that it makes an impact.
And I'll say
So yeah.
this, I mean, yeah, no, and add this is that we also believe that we want you to be as successful as possible and make as much money as possible in a good way to have a great life and achieve all your goals. We want people to be very highly successful. We want the more people our agents are able to help and make, the side effects of making money, but the more people that help, the better we're doing in the world. So you and I want to grow. We want to have influence in our industry. We want to have the ability to serve families the right way and do this. So we want to grow. We want growth. We want and as a byproduct, we'll make money along the way, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I think it's just, but we just, so I think it's that we don't want people to think we're saying limit your income by being honest or limit your income by being, you know, it's like no, we believe it's actually better to go this way, and it actually can make you more money if you look at it that way. But it's just like you can, and you've seen this, and I've seen this plenty in our lives. You can make a ton of money and not have much to show for it in quality of life, in relationships, so when you lack values in the way you make money, you typically, I think, don't have as good of a life. You know what I mean? In my opinion, like you don't have the relationships. You don't feel good about yourself. You don't. So the whole idea is here is like real estate's an opportunity to touch lives in meaningful ways, helping people with their homes. My buyer consultation we're putting out, it's done. We got to put it out, I think, today or Monday at the latest. It's all about like the legacy, the trajectory of life, the financial future of people while they're buying property, right? Like that's what we're doing. And so like you can do that and also at the same time build a quality life for you and your family and your legacy and what you want to do. It's like that's a huge opportunity, right? And then it gets reduced to this like, you know, gimmicky, tacticky thing. And it's like to me, it's like, guys, stay far from that because you don't need that. You just really don't need it, and you'll have a better life. You'll have a far better life, and better relationships, and clients that actually love you and care about you and really appreciative of who you are as a person, and leader. So that's I think that's what we're talking about here. Is the institution of real estate needs to be upheld. It's important to our society. We can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and we got to do, just keep upholding it, and it's up to us. Because if it's not us, who's going to do it? You can't rely on someone else to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. It's about holistic success, not
Yeah,
just monetary gain, and I think that's what you're saying. And, long-lasting relationships, earning money the right way for a long period of time, versus chasing the quick buck or like finagling people so that you can extract from them the dollar, right, that you want to make. It's just, it doesn't quite hit the same way. That rather than doing the things that you just said, right, and servicing people, having good quality relationships, and building a business based on that versus, yeah, just making a quick buck. So I think that's absolutely right. And again, it's just funny. We see caricatures of this in our industry and in this new endeavor from Mr. Stitzer. It's just weird to not to I don't. It's weird to like look at this and say, does anyone else see this? Does anyone smell this? And
yeah,
to realize that some people, yeah, maybe don't initially, right? But we're so laden with then those like tactics and like values, that have been kind of placed on us as to what is success. You know, what kind of agent do you want to be? What's the agent that should be celebrated? Is it the guy that, does 8 deals a year but has 100,000 followers on Instagram making really weird parody videos, right? That don't service the client, right? Is it that? I think I could see a lot of people falling into that and saying, "Yeah, that's what I want."
right.
Um,
Yeah,
that I do want that. That's so cool, right? So it's funny the type of like the value or the things we value a lot of times because of our world just in general, right? And so yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah. Yeah, let's next thing you know, Abe and I parody videos. Let's give us some ideas, guys. Anyway. All right. Well, hey, yeah, I think we're good. I think we're taking your time. Appreciate you guys being here and listening, and yeah, let us know what you think, and we'll see you guys next time. So,
All right, Matt.
all
Yeah,
right,
have a
Abe.
good one.
Yep. See you, man.
We'll see you.
Oh, there we go.